In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast, it is another episode of Should He Stay or Should He Go? And the prospect that we are going to feature today is Ced Coward, Washington State. Ced Coward. I think Ced Coward is a first-round pick, but he has some pretty good options, some heavy hitters in the transfer portal. So stay tuned to hear our thoughts on Cedric Coward and whether we think he should stay in school or pack his bags and go to the big leagues. Stay tuned. Big shout out to all the people that have made the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, along with my co-host, who happens to be my brother, James Barlowe. And like I mentioned in this episode, we are going to talk about Ced Coward. Should he stay or should he go? But before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And also, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode. I have a bunch of ideas in my head as far as content that I want to get out before we get into, or actually before the 2025 NBA draft. And right now, while players are making their decisions on whether they should return to school or go to the draft, I want to do this series on guys that I think are on the fence or have some really tough decisions to make. And also, before I get into the episode, I got to tell you about the Locked On newsletter. You got to check it out, lockedondaily.com. It is your one stop for ultimate team or league coverage delivered right to your inbox. So whatever NBA team you support, again, lockedondaily.com, whether your team is in the playoffs, is in the play-in, or your team is preparing for the 2025 NBA draft. LockedOnDaily.com. All right, let's get right into it. Ced Coward, one of my favorite prospects in this class. I think he's a first-round pick. I give you a little bit about his background. He is a 6'6", 206-pound wing from Washington State. Only played 6 games, but averaged 17.5 points, or 17.7 points, 7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, shot 55% from the floor, 40% from three. Is a classic late bloomer, started off at D3, transferred to Eastern Washington, then followed his coach from Eastern Washington to Washington State, and was limited to just 6 games this year due to a shoulder injury. I really like him. Like I said, I think he's a first-round pick. James, I want to hear your thoughts on Cedric Coward and just share with the audience your personal scouting report on Mr. Coward.
So in my notes way back in November, I had him as a top 20 pick, but I know he did go down. He only did play 6 games this season for Washington State. But now that he's entered the draft and he's going to test and also enter the portal, I'm going to refresh and put him back where I originally had him at, which is a top 20 pick. Why do I think Cedric Coward is a top 20 talent in this particular draft? Great shot prep, effortless mechanics, and he has translatable skills for the kind of 3-and-D guys that I like. Because not only can he knock down open shots and play defense, he shows potential as far as like being a ball handler, and also like his handle has improved from Eastern Washington to just a 6-game sample at Washington State. And I believe he's an unselfish playmaker. So again, we're talking about making shots at the next level, defending at a high level, ridiculous wingspan, all that's going to translate. But he has just enough offensive juice to, I think, where he's not just going to be able to stand in a corner. I'm thinking he can be almost a OG Anunoby like guy where he's not your number 1, number 2 option, maybe not even your number 3, but as your complementary piece, he can do enough on offense besides stand there and take shots. So I'm really high on him. He's got a big choice to make, but the talent is definitely there.
Yeah, I want to dig a little bit into his background. He entered the draft last year, 2024 draft, pulled his name out, and left Eastern Washington to follow his coach at Washington State. He began his career at a Division III school in Oregon called Willamette, and his first year playing Division I basketball, which was at Eastern Washington, the numbers weren't like spectacular at all. I mean, 7 points, 5.6 rebounds. Then he made the jump as a sophomore at Eastern Washington, which I'm sorry, not as a sophomore, but in his junior year, his third year, averaged 15 points, 6.7 rebounds. He shot 38% from three, 56% from the floor. And then in the 6 games he played this year at Washington State, 55% from the floor, 40% from three, 17.7 points. If you just look at the numbers, you see that he's an efficient scorer. He shoots 55+% from the floor. He shoots in the high 30s from three on a good volume. He shot 89% from the foul line in 23-24 at Eastern Washington. This year at Washington State, and like I said, just 6 games, got to the foul line 5 times per game, but shot 84% from the foul line. So over his career, which spans 3 schools, we're talking 59% from the floor, 38% from three, and 83% from the foul. So not only can he score, but he scores efficiently. And when I think about his game, the word efficient comes up because even how he scores is efficient. Not a guy that takes a lot of bad shots, gets to his spots on the floor efficiently in 2 or 3 dribbles or less. But the main appeal could be the measurables. 6'6" with like a 7'2" wingspan. That is what I've heard. 7'1".
How does he buy shirts, man?
Straight t-shirts, man. Straight t-shirts. Straight t-shirts, man. But yes, 7 foot plus wingspan. And he fits the archetype of, this 3-and-D wing that teams like. But I think labeling him as a 3-and-D wing kind of doesn't paint the whole picture. I think that he has more to his game. I think he's going to be able to score on multiple levels. I like the fact that he has a post game. He posts up smaller wings, and he has the ability, using his massive wingspan, to shoot over the top of smaller defenders. I think that he is the type of guy that is going to be able to impact games with his shooting, with his defense, with his ability to exploit mismatches. And shout out to Chris Kesey. Chris Kesey's a big-time follower of the NBA Big Board podcast. And he made a comment in the comments yesterday about Carter Bryant, saying that Carter Bryant is the type of player that you can't hunt on mismatches on defense. And with his shooting, you have to respect him on offense. And I think guys like that, and the way he worded it was so eloquent in a sense, but Cedric Coward also fits that mold that in the NBA, especially in the playoffs, as we're getting towards the playoffs and we're starting to see, how the game is different. Guys like Cedric Coward or even like Carter Bryant are not guys that you're going to pick on and target in mismatches. And those guys provide a lot of value. So with that being said, Ced Coward has a big decision to make, a massive, massive decision, because I think he's a first-round pick. Even though there's a very limited sample size of high major basketball, but he's got some schools that are coming after him. He entered his name in the transfer portal, and once he put his name in the transfer portal, the word is, and I've heard it from a very reliable source, that he's heard from Duke, Alabama, Florida, Kansas, and Washington. Heavy, heavy hitters. We're talking about Duke, Final Four. Alabama was in the Final Four last year. Florida, fresh off a national championship. Kansas is still Kansas. They've had some struggles the last couple of years, but it's still Kansas. And then Washington State, University of Washington has done a really good job in the portal this year. So that kind of adds some intrigue to his decision, because I think he's a first-round pick. But based off of what I'm hearing, the way this NIL money is going, that even if he is a first-round pick, he could stand to make more money by staying in school. So before we get into the second segment where we're going to really dig into the pros and cons of staying and going, when you saw that Ced entered the portal and you saw the names of the schools that were targeting him, how did you think that impacted his draft stock?
So when I first saw him enter the portal, I was like, yeah, all right, cool. Maybe he's going to try to, go from Washington State to maybe a Big 12 school or, something. I was thinking like Washington, obviously in the Big 10. But then when I saw Duke, And then when I saw Florida, I was like, oh, okay, that's legit. He's one of the top 5 players in the portal at that point. So I think it's a tough decision. But again, if those schools want you and you look at the success that they've had, my thinking has always been, is always, all right, that's the short term. What are you going to do in the long term? And it's a very, very difficult choice. But when those schools call you, you allegedly have to absolutely listen, because it's the money is going to be there. The spotlight is definitely going to be there. And it's an opportunity to prove your draft stock. So good luck, Mr. Coward.
All right, up next, we are going to weigh the pros and cons of staying and going. And then in the last segment, we're just going to give our decision. What we think Ced Coward should do. Have you heard that Skims is making underwear for men? If you've had issues with your underwear, whether it is with fit or comfort or just finding the right style, then Skims has the perfect underwear for you. Their line offers everything from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. I mean, just listen to some of the reviews. Here is a review from a father who is a traveler. He says, I've always liked a good square cut boxer brief, but what I don't like is when my boxer briefs ride up between my cheeks. As a coach, I'm traveling constantly and always on the move. And luckily, Skims found a way to create the perfect 3-inch stretch boxer briefs that gives me all the movement I need throughout the day and the perfect comfort for those long trips out on the road without ever riding up or losing their shape. All the other boxer briefs have officially been put on notice. So that is a real live testimonial. And if you want to have your own testimonial, go to skims.com/lockedonnba, or you can visit one of the Skims stores. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop down menu that follows. Again, skims.com/lockedonnba. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's the electricity in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app can actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. So you can save up to 60% on last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They have all-in pricing, which means there is no surprise fees at checkouts. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply, but create an account, use the redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, second segment. So, Ced Coward has a massive decision. And just give you a little bit of background. He's 21 years old. He'll turn 22 in September. So I think that could be a factor. I think with the schools that have reached out, I think it helps him in a sense with the NBA teams, because NBA teams can say, all right, if these schools want him, they think he's a win now guy. They think he is the missing piece to helping them win a championship, because all of those schools are going to come in, maybe not Washington, but all of those schools that we mentioned are going to enter the season with the expectations of winning a national championship. I think with those schools that have reached out, it kind of gives him a little bit of leverage with the NBA teams. It kind of makes the NBA teams think like, all right, I know we only saw him for 6 games, but we need to really hone in and study our film on those 6 games. Now, I've heard that he is cleared for workouts after, he had the shoulder injury that sidelined him. He's cleared for workouts. He's working out. He's shooting, or he hasn't been cleared for contact drills. So from everything that I've been hearing, he is going to participate at the combine. He's going to shoot. He's going to interview. And then I think that's when a decision will be made. But I do think that the schools that are coming after him kind of puts the NBA teams on notice. Like, hey, we got real options here. So if you want him, you need to pay attention to him. But if you don't, we have an excellent backup plan where he can make some really, really good money. And this is not related to Ced, but it is. I spoke to an NIL agent today, and he was telling me this NIL money is so crazy that he said there was a guy that he has that right now is at best case scenario an Exhibit 10 guy, not a two-way guy, an Exhibit 10 guy. He said that his guy is begging for a petition to get back to school because if he returns to school, he has an offer that's going to pay him $1 million. So he can make more money going back to school than he would as a two-way guy, which he's not even realistically a two-way guy. So the agent was saying, like, my guy's either going to be an Exhibit 10 guy or he's going to be a millionaire. Like, there's no in between. So with that being said, a guy like Cedric Coward is probably going to command $3 to $4 million in NIL money. How does that impact the decision?
All right, so kind of like how I talked about on the last episode we did together with Carter Bryant. Do you want, let's say the low end, $3 million for 1 year and you can improve your stock, or you can roll the dice on improving your stock. Or if you're a top 20 pick, do you take whatever the scale is over 3 years and then you get to your second contract quicker? And his situation is different than Carter Bryant's because coming off the injury, How does that injury affect him? So I get going back to school, and I definitely get getting paid. Again, this is not legal advice, but if you'd have threw $3 million in front of 20-year-old James Barlowe, he probably would have went back to school. I get it. But there's also the fact that, there is a certain level of mystery behind Cedric Coward, right? Yep. He only played 6 games, and he only played 6 games in what conference is Washington State? Is that a Power 4? They used to be a Power. Whatever. It was a Power 6 team. I don't know. I think they might have been independent Pac-12.
But they didn't play enough games to where, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but here's the thing. There's a certain level of mystery behind him. So just going over some box scores of Cedric Coward at Eastern Washington. They started off with a pretty tough schedule. Utah, Ole Miss, Cincinnati, Stanford, Washington State, and Southern California. In those games against Utah, he had a 9-point game. Against Ole Miss, he had 16 and 6 rebounds. Against Cincinnati, he had 21. And against Stanford, he had 14. And then he kind of cooled off against Washington State in California, where he had 8-point games and 6-point games. Then you fast forward to this season at Washington State, in whatever conference they played in last year. Probably got to turn on NCAA football to figure that out.
They're independent. They're like, they offered me a job when I was the head coach, and I think they were like just floating.
You play like Oregon State, and then you just pick the schedule from there? Yeah. So whatever conference Washington State was in, they only had one Power 4 opponent, which was Iowa, and he struggled that game. He had a 9-point game. Then he followed it up against Northern Colorado. He lit them up for 30. So with that being said, again, we talked about this is about the concerns and weighing in the NIL factor. There is still, on the metric side of things, he's going to check all the boxes. Then we know he's going to measure extremely well. And then if he's healthy, he's probably going to play well, right? And then at the same time, there's still a level of mystery of how good he is. And at the same time, because of the role he projects to have, I don't necessarily need him to go back to school and average 17, 18 a game. Now, again, he'll be 22 this time next year. So you kind of expect him to, put up efficient numbers, and he has been efficient. It's just a matter of the mystery is good and it's bad, right? Because, that level of mystery, you keep teams guessing. And there's enough data, there's enough information out there to say he's going to shoot the ball well, he's going to defend well. And, you don't need data, you don't need a film to see that. When he shows up at the combine, his hands are going to be as big as the screen, his arms are going to be stretching out everywhere. So it's like, I get both sides, and I understand why he would go back to school, but I also completely understand why he would say, you know what? All you need to see from me is the combine. You're going to see everything, and it's going to be good, and I'm going to defend, I'm going to make plays, and I'm going to shoot the ball extremely well. So, but that's $3 million potentially waiting for you if you don't go to the NBA.
Yeah, I think for me it's a no-brainer. Like,
no-brainer to do what?
We'll talk about that in the last segment. Okay. Unlike Carter Bryant, I was on the fence until it was time for me to make the decision live on air. This one, the decision has been made. All right, up next, I'm going to share my thoughts on what I think Ced Coward should do, but I'm also going to think about it from the perspective of an NBA team and why it could be a risky decision for them. Question. I got a question for you. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your own gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console is required. All you have to do is just grab your paired controller. Subscribers sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you are ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 2025 to Call of Duty Black Ops. It is easy for you to stream your favorite shows. It is gaming made simple, and it is all on your Fire TV. You can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. If you already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games or your kids' games with you wherever you go. So check it out at Amazon.com, Fire TV locked on to get started. All right, last segment, we're going to talk about what we think Ced Coward should do. This is why I think the situation could be tricky for NBA teams. Because, yes, you're going to be in love with the profile. And if you look at the numbers over his career, he's been efficient. We covered that. Love the fact that he's got a mid-range game. He's got a post game. He can shoot. He's long. He can defend. He can pass. But when I look at the games this year, 6 games, there's only one game against, a respectable opponent. No disrespect to the teams that I didn't say.
How do you say there's only one opponent that's respectable?
With one power 4 or 5 opponent, and that was a game against Iowa. He had 9 points. He had 22 points against Eastern Washington, his former school, but it was 22 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks. He had a 30-point game against Northern Colorado. He was 12 of 18 from the floor. Then he had this stretch. Iowa, 3 of 10. Idaho, he only took 3 shots. Bradley, he was 4 of 6 from the floor. He only took 6 shots in 34 minutes. Yes, they won by like 15 points. And
he had 18 that game, though.
He had 18 points. And yes, he got to the foul line 8 times. And then in the last game he played against Portland State, he had 23 points on 7 of 12 shooting. So the numbers are good. The game that you would have really wanted to see him against higher level competition was Iowa, and he only, had 9 points. So the numbers are good, like I said. You factor in the competition, and it wasn't like great numbers against great competition. So that means you're going to have to heavily rely on what you saw from Eastern Washington the year before, which wasn't enough for him to stay in the 2024 NBA draft. So this is just thinking from an NBA team's perspective of weighing the pros and the cons. So I get that. Now, for my decision, I think it is a no-brainer. I think if you're Cedric Coward, you tell college, hey, the money's good. I know, like, the opportunity to, live in Durham or be at Florida and Kansas. on top of being a multi-millionaire at some of the top blue blood schools, it doesn't get much more appealing than that. But I think at the age of 21, my name is hot right now. I got enough buzz to where I'm in the first round range at 21. After playing 6 games, I'm going to ride that wave off to the sunset. I think he's a first round pick. I don't know if NBA teams feel that way. I mean, I have heard some teams are really, really high on him just because of the metrics, and he ranks really, really high on their analytics based off the metrics. So I do think that there are some teams that will strongly consider him in the first round. I think if, like with Carter Bryant, we talked about yesterday, the Nets, the Wizards, there's so many rebounding teams or rebuilding teams with picks in the late first round that could be a good landing spot. But I think for him, yes, you probably, you went from Williamette, lightly recruited out of high school, was a 6'4", 190-pound guard. And when John Shire and Bill Self and Nate Oates are recruiting you and telling you what you can bring to the table at these schools, I know that's got to be enticing. But from Ced Coward, I'm going to the draft.
That's hearing that from you, Rafa, is kind of surprising, man. You an NIL dude, man, and
I ain't an NIL.
You're a college boy, man. Listen, this is not legal advice, like I said the last time. This is a disclaimer. Do listen to the people who are close to you. But if I was Cedric Coward, I'm going to the NBA. Again, your whole life, your whole basketball career, the days you was, hopefully these kids still playing the driveway, you was at the gym, wherever you were hooping on the door, you pretended to be an NBA player. Now you're this close to the NBA and you can get there. And you have the talent. You had the talent to test the year before. And here you are again. I'm going to the league. I'm rolling the dice. Yes, $3 to $4 million sounds great. But, I mean, where are you going to spend $4 million at Durham, man? I've been to Durham before. I mean, hey, Cooper had one icy chain. Like, it's okay. I'm saying this. I'm going to the league. I'm banking on my skills. I'm banking on the mystery. And I'm going to the combine. And I'm going to, if he's healthy and clear, I'm going to play at the combine. And I'm going to put pressure on
I'm not playing at the combine.
I'm no definitely way. Why not?
Well, because if he hasn't played since, I don't know, December, I'm not playing at the combine if I hadn't played since December. You can't simulate game shape and you can't simulate that. So right now I'm shooting the cover off the ball. I'm interviewing well, but I'm not going to play when I haven't played in 4 or 5 months. And the first time I'm playing is with the job on the line. I'm going to.
Okay. That sounds cool, but like, I get it. You haven't played in a while, but we're not playing an entire game. I'm going to try to play because I feel like my calling card is going to be shooting and defense. Now, depending on what kind of shape you're in, I get it. But at 6'6", with those measurables, and I look at the small forward crop, okay, Carter Bryant in that setting is likely going to do the same thing. Nick Clifford in that setting is likely going to do some of the same things. There'll be some playmaking. I can do the same thing as them, and I'm going to lock up, and I'm going to shoot I don't know. I get what you're saying.
But if you're talking about the mystique behind it, you continue to add to that mystique because he's not even clear to my knowledge for contact right now.
Okay.
So that means you have 3 weeks to get ramped up and in shape because you can run on a treadmill, you can swim, you can jog, but you can't simulate somebody bumping, stopping, starting. And I just don't think that it makes sense for him to play in the combine. From a team perspective, yes, I want to see him play.
Yeah, but here's my thing. I get that. And I get that there's a risk in it. But like, it's not the same player. Not even close to the same player. AJ Johnson had whatever buzz he had. He strung together enough it wasn't even good games. He had good plays, right? And he turned that into being what who knows where we thought he would be last year. We knew he was going to get drafted because he was 6'5" and he's talented and he looks like a little kid, but he can play. He wasn't efficient. He turned that into becoming a first round pick. Basically, a lot of that based off of his combine play, right? And there was a gap between when he played in Australia and the combine. I get it, and it's not the same thing because he's healthy. I'm just saying this. If that were me and I'm cleared to play, I think teams understand that you're not in the best shape because you haven't played. But I also think a team would understand that, you know what? This dude is out here competing and we just need to see a little bit of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think he needs to come in there and dominate for however many games he needs to play because I think he's going to shoot well regardless, right? Like, I'm not taking him because of a workout, seeing him being able to shoot. I'm taking him because I'm seeing him locking people up. And I don't know. I get it. I understand what you're saying. And maybe I'm not evaluating this the right way. But I feel like even with his mystique and all of that, if he's able to, go out there and give it whatever, work out for one day, I think that would be enough to sell a team. Because we just haven't seen him in so long.
Right. And if you haven't seen him and he's gone first round buzz, then you want to keep, at least in my opinion, if I'm representing him, I want to keep the mystique. I don't want to cloud up I don't want to like mess it up because he's just out of rhythm. Like, you can be in shape, but you can be totally out of rhythm.
I 100% agree because, whatever he's been able to do is not playing basketball.
Yeah. So if he goes to the combine and you see the arms hanging down past his shins and he's killing in the shooting drills and he's showing athleticism, and to me, I wouldn't even if I'm his representative, I don't even list that he's cleared for contact until after the combine.
I get what you're saying, man. I don't know, man.
It's a cat and mouse game. It is
a cat and mouse game, but I feel like I just need if he's everything that I think he is and that I've seen, and I see him go out there and let's say, because everybody's playing the combine, I believe, right? For the most part, right?
Yeah, but I mean, they're going to make you play. But at the end of the day, we're not going to see Ace Bailey and Cooper Flagg match up at the combine.
Nah, but at the same time, if I'm if I catch him out there and there's somebody in that draft range who's going to work out and play, hey, man, just go lock him up for a couple possessions. But we'll see. I get what you're saying. And that's likely what they're probably going to do. I just be trying to think like I'm really about to compete out there and forget that I'm just behind this desk. My fault.
Yeah, I mean, I know agents that demand their guys compete at the combine. I think that's great. And I know from a team perspective, you would love to see everybody compete. Not saying that it's going to factor in your draft decision, but it could help. But being realistic, for some guys, it's more risky to play than to not play. And I think it's risky for a guy that hasn't played since December and hasn't had a lot of live contact, or he's only going to have a couple weeks or a couple of days of live contact to go out there on this big stage and play with guys that have probably only taken a couple weeks off. I mean, some guys that, you think about guys that played in the Final Four, they've been playing. So that's why I say it's
a risk. I'm a risky dude, though.
All right, well, what do you think Ced Coward should do? Should he stay in school, or is it too hard to pass up Duke, Alabama, Florida, Kansas, and Washington, along with a possibly $3 million payday? What would you do if you were Ced Coward? Once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day, and we are out of here.